You are walking through a 19th-century city after night has fully arrived. The transition is quieter than you expect. There is no sudden blackout, no dramatic break. Instead, the city thins. Activity does not disappear, but it retreats into specific channels. What remains visible feels selective, intentional. This is not a sleeping city. It is a city operating under constraint. There is light, but very little of it. Oil lamps hang at irregular intervals, casting weak, uneven glows. Some streets have none at all. Others have a single lamp marking a corner or an intersection, its light barely reaching beyond a few steps. The rest of the city is shaped by shadow. You notice how darkness here is not uniform. It settles differently depending on the space. Narrow streets fill quickly, becoming corridors of shadow where depth is hard to judge. Wider roads hold onto visibility longer, but even there the ground disappears into darkness beyond the lamp's reach. You walk more slowly. Not out of fear, but out of calculation. Uneven paving stones, shallow gutters, rails set into the street for carts or wagons. All of these matter more at night. A misstep now is more costly than during the day. Sound becomes sharper. Your footsteps echo against stone walls. A distant door closing carries farther than it should. Somewhere nearby, metal strikes metal, perhaps a gate, perhaps a tool. Without sight to contextualize it, the sound feels closer. The city feels stretched between silence and labor. Most shops are closed. Windows are dark. Residential streets are subdued, with only the occasional glow behind a curtain or shutter. Yet in the distance, you hear work continuing. A low mechanical rhythm. Not constant, but persistent. Somewhere, machines are still running. Night shifts are underway. Certain industries do not stop simply because daylight has ended. You realize quickly that night in this city is not empty time. It is segmented time. Some areas are dormant. Others are active in ways that are less visible, less public. Work continues behind walls, behind gates, behind long brick facades that hide their interiors from the street. You pass near a factory district. The buildings loom larger at night. Their scale is harder to read without daylight. Tall walls rise out of darkness, broken only by a few illuminated windows high above ground level. Light spills from them faintly, but the source remains distant. You hear it again, the machinery. Muted by walls, dampened by distance, but unmistakable. A steady pulse. The city does not sleep. It shifts. You notice how people move at this hour. Those who are out walk with purpose. There is no wandering, no casual strolling. Movement is direct. Routes are familiar. Time outside is minimized. Some people walk alone. Others in pairs or small groups. Conversations are brief, subdued. Voices do not carry far on purpose. Night compresses behavior. You pass an intersection where an oil lamp hangs from a post. The light creates a small island of visibility. As people approach it, they briefly emerge from shadow, then disappear again on the other side. You realize how exposed these pools of light feel. During the day, visibility means safety. At night, it can mean the opposite. To be seen is to be identifiable. Many people move quickly through illuminated areas rather than lingering. You walk past residential buildings where curtains are drawn tight. Light, when present, is contained. Homes turn inward. Night encourages enclosure. But not everyone has the option to retreat. You pass figures emerging from an industrial street, workers finishing or beginning a shift. Their clothing is marked by use. Their posture is tired but practiced. Night work has its own rhythm. You sense how different this is from daylight labor. There is less supervision here, but also less tolerance for error. Fewer people are present to notice problems. Fatigue accumulates faster. You hear a whistle in the distance. Not a warning, a signal, perhaps marking a shift change, perhaps coordinating movement inside a factory yard. Sound carries instructions where sight cannot. The city relies on sound at night. You notice how authority is expressed differently now. A police patrol passes nearby. You hear them before you see them, boots on stone, measured pace, quiet conversation. Their presence is understated but deliberate. They do not dominate the street. They move through it, observing. Night policing is about presence rather than intervention. The city expects compliance through visibility and routine, not constant enforcement. You continue walking. The street narrows, and the light fades almost completely. You rely on memory, where the curb rises, where the wall curves inward. You keep to the side, leaving the center of the street open. You understand that darkness reshapes spatial logic. What matters now is not efficiency, but predictability. Known routes are safer than shorter ones. Familiar ground is preferred over open space. You hear work again. Closer this time. A door partially open. Warm air drifting out. Inside, men move under dim light, continuing tasks that do not wait for morning. Night work exists on the margins of visibility. The city's economy extends into darkness, but its social life does not. Taverns remain open in limited numbers. Their light is low, controlled. Noise is kept inside. They function as contained exceptions, not centers of activity. You pass one without stopping. The glow fades quickly behind you. You notice how the city feels more vertical at night. Walls loom. Windows appear higher. The ground seems less stable. Without visual detail, mass and shape dominate perception. The city feels heavier. Not oppressive, but weighty. Solid. Inescapable. You realize that the 19th century city at night is not defined by absence. It is defined by constraint. Constraint of light. Constraint of movement. Constraint of visibility. The night does not stop the city. It narrows it. And as you continue walking through streets shaped by shadow, labor, and silence, you begin to understand that this version of the city is not temporary. For those who work at night, this is the city they know best. You continue walking, and the presence of work becomes clearer. During the day, labor defines the city through crowds, noise, and movement. At night, it defines the city through persistence. Work does not announce itself loudly. It continues quietly, behind walls, beyond direct sight. You notice how certain streets remain alive while others fall silent. Residential areas darken almost completely. Factory districts do not. Here, light appears sporadically. High windows glowing faintly, doors partially open to release heat, silhouettes moving against illuminated interiors. The contrast is striking. Night reorganizes labor. Some industries shut down with daylight. Others cannot. Textile mills, metal workshops, rail-related facilities, and large factories often operate in shifts that extend into the night. Production schedules override natural rhythms. You walk alongside a long industrial wall. The building stretches farther than you can see in the darkness. Its surface absorbs sound, but not completely. Through it, you feel vibration more than you hear noise. A low, continuous pulse travels through the ground. You realize that night work changes how the city feels underfoot. The ground is quieter, but it is not still. Beneath the silence, there is movement, machines turning, steam circulating, labor continuing. You pass a gate where workers enter and exit in small numbers. There is no crowd now. No urgency. Each person moves deliberately. Conversations are brief, functional. Faces are tired, focused. The night shift is not social. It is procedural. You notice how supervision operates differently at night. There are fewer overseers, fewer managers. Authority is present, but more distant. Workers rely more on routine and mutual awareness than on constant instruction. Mistakes at night carry different risks. Fatigue dulls attention. Reduced lighting limits perception. When something goes wrong, fewer people are present to intervene quickly. Night work demands a specific kind of endurance. You hear a steam release somewhere nearby. The sound is sudden, sharp, then gone. It echoes more than it would during the day. Without competing noise, every industrial sound feels amplified. The city listens to its own labor. You pass near a loading area. Crates are stacked in shadow. A cart stands idle, waiting for morning transport. Some work prepares for daylight rather than serving it. Night labor often exists to enable the next day's activity. You notice how time feels fragmented here. Shifts overlap partially. Workers move in and out at different hours. There is no single moment when work stops. Instead, activity rotates through the night. You walk past a railway-adjacent street. The rails are barely visible, but you recognize their presence by feel and sound. Somewhere in the distance, metal shifts. A coupling clinks. Rail infrastructure extends the city's activity into darkness. You realize how the 19th century has altered the meaning of night. Before industrialization, darkness marked rest. Now darkness marks a change in pace, not a cessation of work. The city has learned to operate without full visibility. You notice how workers adapt physically. Movements are economical. Gestures are practiced. Tools are arranged in familiar patterns. When vision is limited, memory and habit take over. You see men pausing briefly near a wall, stretching stiff shoulders, rubbing hands. Rest is minimal. Breaks are short. Night work compresses recovery. You sense how isolation affects labor. During the day, work is collective, visible, reinforced by numbers. At night, workers are fewer. Each person feels more exposed. Responsibility weighs heavier. You hear a bell inside a factory yard. Not loud, not ceremonial, just enough to signal transition. Time is still regulated, even in darkness. You realize how little the street knows about what happens behind these walls. From outside, the city appears quiet. Inside, production continues. The night hides labor from public view. You pass a row of windows high above ground. Behind some light flickers. Behind others, nothing. The pattern is irregular, determined by process rather than design. The city's skyline changes subtly. Chimneys still rise, but smoke is harder to see at night. Steam disperses invisibly. Industry leaves fewer visible traces after dark, but it does not disappear. You notice how policing intersects with night labor. Patrols move more frequently near active industrial areas. Not because crime is expected, but because presence is necessary. Where work continues, attention follows. You pass a guard stationed near a factory entrance. He stands still, lantern low, eyes scanning more than seeing. His role is deterrence, not intervention. Night authority depends on predictability. You realize how silence coexists with effort. The city is quieter now, but not calmer. Tension remains, held within routines, schedules, and fatigue. You walk farther from the industrial core. The sounds fade gradually. The vibration lessens. Residential streets reclaim the darkness. The contrast is abrupt. In one part of the city, machines operate. In another, people sleep. The boundary is spatial, not temporal. You understand that night fragments the city. Different zones operate under different rules at the same hour. There is no single nighttime experience. You pass a worker heading home. His pace is slow. His posture is slumped. He keeps to the side of the street. The workday, or night, has ended for him, but the city has not changed to accommodate his fatigue. You notice how few amenities exist for night workers. Most services are closed. Food options are limited. Shelter is scarce. The city supports night labor structurally, but not socially. You realize that this version of the city favors endurance over comfort. Night work is necessary, but invisible. As you continue walking, the industrial sounds recede, replaced again by silence. The city narrows. What remains is a thin layer of activity, suspended within darkness. The 19th century city does not sleep. It rotates. And as you move through its quieter hours, you begin to see how silence and labor coexist, uneasily, persistently, shaping a city that never fully rests. You keep walking, and the character of the streets changes again. Here, the night is not defined by silence alone, but by awareness. Every sound, every movement, every pause carries weight. The city feels thinner, as if only a narrow layer of activity remains between you and complete stillness. You notice how differently the streets behave after dark. During the day, they absorb movement. Crowds smooth out irregularities. Noise masks individual actions. At night, the street reflects everything back. A single footstep sounds deliberate. A brief stop feels intentional. You adjust without thinking. Your pace becomes even. Your route more conservative. You avoid sudden changes in direction. These habits are not signs of fear. They are learned responses to reduced visibility and increased consequence. You realize that the night reshapes risk. It does not create new dangers as much as it concentrates existing ones. What was diffused during the day becomes localized at night. Corners matter more. Distance matters more. Timing matters more. You pass under a weak oil lamp. For a moment, the street becomes legible. Stone textures emerge. Edges sharpen. Then, just as quickly, you leave the light behind, and the city dissolves back into shadow. You understand how unreliable illumination is here. Lamps are spaced far apart. Many are poorly maintained. Some burn low. Others flicker in the wind. They do not create continuity, only interruption. Between them, darkness dominates. You notice how people navigate this environment. Those who know the streets well move confidently, even without light. Their steps are measured but assured. Those less familiar hesitate, pausing briefly at intersections, reorienting themselves before continuing. Familiarity is a form of protection. You hear voices ahead, low, controlled. A patrol moves along the street. 2 men, perhaps 3. Their lantern hangs low, angled toward the ground rather than outward. They are not trying to illuminate the street. They are watching movement. Night surveillance operates close to the body. There are no distant vantage points. No sweeping visibility. Control is local, mobile, dependent on recognition. The patrol passes without stopping. They do not question you. They do not need to. Your movement is predictable. Your presence does not break the rhythm of the street. You understand that at night, safety is negotiated rather than enforced. You pass a side street where darkness deepens noticeably. The entrance is narrow. The walls close in. Light from the main road does not reach far inside. You do not enter. Not because you expect something to happen, but because there is no reason to test uncertainty. Night rewards avoidance. You notice how certain risks are accepted as unavoidable. Petty theft. Opportunistic crime. Disputes that spill briefly into public view and then vanish again. The city does not attempt to eliminate these completely. It manages them through presence and routine. You hear a raised voice somewhere nearby. It is sharp, but short-lived. No escalation follows. The sound fades, absorbed by walls and distance. Whatever occurred, it resolves itself privately. The night contains conflict rather than displaying it. You walk past a row of shuttered shops. Their facades are featureless in the dark. Signs are unreadable. Windows reveal nothing. Commerce has no public face at this hour. You realize how the street's meaning changes. During the day, it is a place of exchange. At night, it is a corridor. A means of passage, not a destination. You keep to the edges. The center of the street feels exposed. Carts and wagons are absent now, but their tracks remain. Rails glint faintly in the lamplight, then vanish again. You feel how the city demands attention. Every step requires awareness of surface, space, sound. The night does not allow distraction. It punishes inattention quietly. You notice how industrial darkness differs from pre-industrial night. There is more infrastructure now, rails, factories, yards, but less visibility. Larger structures block sight lines. Sounds echo unpredictably. The scale of the city amplifies uncertainty. You hear machinery again, faint but present. It reminds you that work continues nearby, even if the street itself is quiet. This coexistence, labor behind walls, emptiness outside, defines the 19th century night. You pass a narrow bridge. Water moves below, unseen but audible. The sound is constant, grounding. You slow slightly, adjusting your steps. There is no railing, or only a low one. Night magnifies the consequence of misjudgment. You cross without incident. On the other side, the street widens briefly. An open space appears, perhaps a small square or junction. It is unlit. The openness feels uncomfortable. You cross it directly, without lingering. At night, exposure replaces convenience. You realize how the city teaches this behavior. Not through instruction, but through experience. Stories shared. Incidents remembered. Habits formed. You hear the distant whistle of a factory again. It cuts through the quiet, sharp and functional. Somewhere, time is being marked. Somewhere, work is changing hands. The city synchronizes without spectacle. You pass another patrol further down the street. This one pauses briefly, scanning the area. Their lantern reveals only their immediate surroundings. They do not chase darkness. They contain it. You notice how little communication occurs. Gestures replace words. Presence replaces command. Night governance relies on familiarity and repetition. You continue walking, and the density of the city thins. Buildings stand farther apart. The darkness between them deepens. The industrial core feels distant now. Risk changes here. Fewer witnesses. Fewer patrols. Less sound. The street feels less regulated, but not lawless. The same rules apply, only more quietly. You see a figure ahead, walking in the same direction. Their pace matches yours loosely. Not close enough to be intrusive. Not far enough to ignore. You both maintain distance without acknowledgement. This silent coordination feels normal. You pass a doorway where someone stands partially hidden. They do not move. You do not engage. Both of you continue existing in parallel. Night allows this kind of coexistence. You realize that the city's safety at night depends on predictability. Unpredictable behavior draws attention. Predictable movement blends in. Order is maintained not by force, but by conformity. You hear your own breathing again. The absence of noise makes it noticeable. You adjust unconsciously, slowing slightly. The street ahead remains dark. You keep walking. The 19th century city at night does not overwhelm you with danger. It weighs on you instead. It demands awareness. It limits options. It narrows behavior. And as you move through streets shaped by industry, silence, and shadow, you understand that safety here is not guaranteed. It is practiced. You keep walking, and gradually the city begins to turn away from you. Not all at once. Not completely. But you can feel it happening. The streets are still there, solid beneath your feet. But the life of the city has shifted inward. What remains outside is movement without destination. What matters now is contained behind walls. You notice how few windows show light. Most are dark. Some glow faintly behind curtains or shutters, the light uneven and low. Oil lamps and candles are used sparingly. Illumination is not meant to fill a room, only to make it usable. Even inside, darkness remains present. You pass a row of workers' housing. The buildings are close together, built for efficiency rather than comfort. Their facades are plain. At night, they become almost featureless. Only occasional light betrays the presence of life within. Inside these homes, rest is not simple. For many, sleep is fragmented. Night work disrupts routine. Some people have just returned from a shift. Others are preparing to leave for one. The city does not rest on a single schedule anymore. You imagine households adjusting quietly. Someone moves carefully, so as not to wake others. Boots are removed near the door. A small fire is tended without adding fuel. Voices are kept low, not only out of courtesy, but out of habit. Night teaches restraint indoors as well. You notice how sound behaves differently here. Through walls, you hear faint traces of domestic life. Soft conversation, the scrape of a chair, a child stirring. These sounds feel closer than they would during the day. The city listens through its own structures. You pass a building where 2 windows are lit at different heights. Perhaps 2 families share the same structure. Perhaps a workshop occupies the lower floor, with living quarters above. In industrial cities, these divisions blur. Work and home overlap, even at night. You realize how little separation exists between labor and rest. The factory has extended its reach into domestic time. Sleep is shaped around shifts. Meals are taken at odd hours. The night is not purely restorative. It is transitional. You walk past a narrow passage between buildings. It leads to a shared courtyard. The space is dark, but not unused. Someone has placed an object near the wall, a bucket, a crate, something positioned by memory rather than sight. These spaces are navigated through familiarity. Inside homes, light defines activity. Where a candle burns, people gather close. Tasks are chosen based on what can be done in low visibility. Mending rough clothing, preparing simple food, talking quietly. Reading is rare. Writing rarer still. The night limits what can be produced privately. You notice how much of the city's population is simply waiting. Waiting to sleep. Waiting to wake. Waiting for a shift to begin or end. The city is suspended between cycles. You pass a tavern again, quieter now than earlier. The light inside is lower. Fewer voices carry through the door. Some patrons have left. Others remain, drawn by warmth rather than company. These spaces serve multiple functions at night. They are shelters. They are waiting rooms. They are places where time passes more easily than in the street or a crowded room. But even here, rest is shallow. Benches are hard. Air is thick. Sleep comes in fragments. The tavern offers pause, not recovery. You continue walking. Residential streets dominate now. The industrial sounds have faded. What remains is a patchwork of quiet interiors and dark exteriors. You notice how the city feels different when most people are inside. The scale shifts. Buildings feel larger. Streets feel narrower. Without bodies moving through them, spaces lose their daytime proportions. You hear footsteps behind a wall. Someone moves from one room to another. The sound is careful, deliberate. Night amplifies small actions. You realize how vulnerable private life is to the surrounding city. Walls are thin. Floors carry sound. Privacy exists, but it is limited. The night makes this more apparent. You imagine people lying awake. Some because of fatigue that has gone too far. Others because they must rise soon. Others because noise from nearby work or movement intrudes. Sleep here is negotiated. It is not assumed. You pass a house where the door opens briefly. A figure steps out, adjusts clothing, and moves away. The door closes quickly behind them. The interior light disappears. Night movement often begins and ends at thresholds. You realize how many people pass through the city at this hour without leaving much trace. Messengers. Watchmen, workers between shifts, those with nowhere else to go. The city supports them structurally, but not emotionally. You notice how little comfort the built environment offers at night. There are no benches meant for rest, no public shelters, no illuminated refuges. The city is designed for productivity by day, containment by night. You walk past a small lodging house. Its door is closed, but light seeps from beneath it. Inside, people sleep close together. The space is crowded but protected. For some, this is the only alternative to the street. You realize how class shapes nighttime experience. Those with stable housing retreat inward. Those without remain visible, or deliberately invisible, on the margins. You pass a figure resting against a wall, half hidden in shadow. They do not sleep deeply. No one does here. Night rest is light, easily interrupted. The city tolerates this presence without acknowledging it. You do not stop. Movement is safer than attention. You notice how the absence of public lighting enforces an early inward turn. Even those who might prefer to stay active have limited options. The city does not support leisure at night. It supports endurance. You walk on, and the repetition of dark windows continues. Occasionally, you see movement behind a curtain, a silhouette crossing a wall, a candle being extinguished. Each small action feels significant. You realize how much of urban life occurs unseen. At night, this becomes literal. The city exists as a collection of interiors connected by dark corridors. You hear a distant factory sound again. It reminds you that rest is not universal, that some bodies are still working while others attempt to recover. The night divides the population. You continue walking, and gradually even these signs fade. The residential district deepens into near silence. You understand that the city has not stopped functioning. It has narrowed its focus. What remains is essential life, stripped of visibility and excess. This is how the 19th century city endures the night. By retreating into private spaces, by fragmenting rest, by allowing work and fatigue to overlap. And as you move through streets where most life is hidden behind walls, you understand that night here is not about peace. It is about persistence. You continue walking, and the city enters its deepest phase of night. This is not the moment when darkness first arrives, nor when activity still competes with it. This is the stretch of time when the city has fully adjusted. What remains is deliberate, reduced, and sustained by habit rather than momentum. Movement is rare now. Not absent, but spaced out. When you hear footsteps, they stand alone. When a door opens, it does so quietly, briefly. The city no longer produces overlapping sounds. Each action occupies its own moment. You notice how time slows. Without visual change, minutes lose their shape. There are no crowds forming or dispersing, no shops opening or closing to mark progression. Night stretches into a continuous interval, felt rather than measured. The city waits. You hear the call of a night watchman again. It carries farther now, moving through streets with little to interrupt it. The call does not announce danger. It confirms continuity. Someone is awake. Someone is counting the hours that remain until morning. This is how order persists at night. Not through activity, but through presence. You pass a patrol at rest. Two figures stand near a wall, lantern placed low, partially shielded. They speak quietly. Their posture is relaxed, but alert. The work of the night is almost complete, but it is not finished. Vigilance does not end until daylight returns. You realize how fatigue shapes this final stretch. Those who have been awake since dusk move more slowly now. Their attention is still present, but thinner. Night work accumulates in the body. It does not announce itself dramatically. It settles. You hear industrial sounds again, but weaker. Machines still operate somewhere, but at reduced intensity. Shifts thin out. Maintenance replaces production. The city's labor begins to turn inward, preparing for transition. The boundary between night and morning is not sudden. It is gradual. You walk through a street that felt tense earlier. Now it feels emptied. Whatever risk existed before has dissipated. Not because danger is gone, but because nothing remains to attract it. The city is temporarily neutral. You notice how the built environment feels different now. Walls are familiar. Corners no longer demand the same attention. Your body has adapted. What felt uncertain hours ago now feels navigable. Repetition has replaced alertness. This is how night teaches endurance. Not by removing difficulty, but by making it predictable. You pass a bakery. There is no sign yet, but you sense activity inside. A faint warmth. A subtle smell. Some trades begin before dawn, bridging night and day. The city prepares quietly. You realize how invisible this preparation is. From the street, nothing announces it. From inside, it is routine. The city renews itself without spectacle. You hear a distant whistle. Not sharp, not urgent. A marker. Somewhere, a shift is ending. Somewhere else, another is about to begin. The city rotates again. You feel how the rhythm changes. Not faster yet, just different. The night's stillness begins to loosen. Time regains direction. You notice how the sky changes subtly. Not lighter, but less opaque. Darkness remains, but it no longer feels absolute. This shift is perceptible only after long attention. The city senses it too. A door opens and stays open a moment longer than before. A light appears in a window and does not disappear immediately. Movement, once minimized, begins to return cautiously. You realize how collective this moment is. Thousands of people experience it separately, but in parallel. The waiting ends gradually, not all at once. You hear carts being prepared somewhere out of sight. Wood creaks. Metal adjusts. Wheels turn briefly, then stop. Morning infrastructure begins to assemble itself in fragments. You understand how night and day overlap here. There is no clean division, only transition. The 19th century city does not wake suddenly. It re-expands. You walk past a square that was empty hours ago. It is still empty, but it feels different now. Less exposed, more expectant. Space begins to regain purpose. You realize how much of the night was about reduction. Reducing movement. Reducing visibility. Reducing interaction. Now those reductions begin to reverse. You pass another watchman. He pauses, listening. His posture has changed slightly. Less rigid. The work of the night is nearly complete. Soon authority will shift again, from patrols to crowds, from presence to numbers. You feel how fatigue lingers. The city carries it. Bodies carry it. Night leaves residue. It does not disappear with light. Workers returning home in the early morning will carry exhaustion into rest. Those rising for the day will carry sleepiness into labor. The city absorbs these overlaps. You continue walking, aware that your presence will soon blend into others. The street will fill again. Sounds will layer. Individual actions will lose their isolation. Night will recede, but not vanish. It will remain embedded in routine, memory, and infrastructure. You understand that this is what it means for a city to never fully sleep. Not constant activity, but continuous function. Silence and labor. Darkness and preparation. Rest and fatigue. All coexisting in rotation. As the first signs of morning approach, the city prepares to become visible again. But the night has shaped it, and it will do so again when the light fades. This is what it feels like to walk through a 19th century city at night. Not dramatic, not empty, but sustained by routine, vigilance, and the slow return of light.